Welcome back. This morning, we are pulling back the curtain for a closer look at what's showing in Houston over the holidays. Stages, a local theater I'm proud to be part of, is putting a modern twist on a classic with their production of Panto Pinocchio. And actor Ryan Shabak joins us live to talk about it. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I want to ask you first off, a lot of people may not know what in the world is a panto.
When you hear that word, you're wondering, what is a panto? What am I getting
Right.
into? The very first thing I always tell people is, if you've ever seen Shrek, it's a musical, it's a cartoon, it's people being bigger than life. It stems from this probably over 200 years of tradition in England, in Great Britain, and it's not pantomime where it's silent.
Yeah, I think that's where people's mind first
that's
goes,
exactly.
pantomime.
That's where mine goes too. But it's not. It's about taking characters and making them bigger than life. So you take a child's story, for example, this year we're doing Panto Pinocchio, and then you put a modern twist on it. So it's Panto Pinocchio in AI. And these characters are huge, they're bigger than life, they're comedic elements, there's audience participation, and that's the huge thing. So if you have a family and you're bringing in a small child, there's a good chance that child's gonna come up on stage and save the day.
That's what I love about the Pantos, and the audience has really responded to them, the shows particularly at Stages. Tell us how these kind of developed over time into fan favorites, and how your character, Buttons, has become a fan favorite as well.
Yeah, I am so fortunate. I'm the luckiest actors in the world. In 2008, the artistic director at Stages, Ken McLaughlin, had gone to England and seen two pantos and brought that whole genre back here to Houston. And so from 2008, we were doing world premiere musicals of these pantos, and the audience at Stages just loved it so much. So they wanted to continue to bring it back year after year. And one of the greatest stories I have is on that very first show, you have no idea how audiences are gonna react, because we're in Houston, nobody's ever, you don't know what a panto is. And so it's opening night, and there's a small child in the front row, and I bring this child up on stage, and the child saves the day, and audiences think it's just the most delightful experience ever. And then flash forward to 2 years ago, where that child brought his 5-year-old child.
Oh, wow.
So it's 3 generations that had seen this panto, and my heart, melted. It was so beautiful.
A rich tradition.
Yes.
So I want to talk to you about Panto Pinocchio.
Yes.
We've been showing a couple of scenes from it, a couple of the characters, of course, yours, Buttons, and this guy with a bunch of wires on and everything.
Yeah.
You talked about that tech twist on a classic story.
Yeah, so that is tradition for Panto. You take these traditional stories, like the Cinderellas and the Sleeping Beauties, but you put a modern twist on it. And what we're going through in this world right now, this idea of AI, we want to challenge our audiences and say, how are we feeling about this? And Panto Pinocchio is a great example of that, because here you have this man who's trying to take something unreal and make it real in his life, to give his life authenticity. And it's an AI creature, and how do we feel about that? How do we feel about AI kind of taking over our lives, our jobs? We have questions, don't we?
Yeah, it sounds like there's a little bit of something in there for all audiences, because as adults, this is something that we're grappling with right now. And for kids, it's an opportunity to go see some art. You don't have to sit there, you don't have to be still, you don't have to be quiet.
Nope.
You can
You
enjoy
can take
yourself.
those candy wrappers and just go like this the whole time.
And tell us a little bit more, Buttons. We see him pop up through every panto. Who is Buttons, and again, what does he mean to the audience?
So about just over 200 years ago in England, there was this character that would come on stage during Cinderella, specifically Cinderella. And this character would kind of be the interstitial muscle in between from scene to scene, because these were elaborate productions. And they would drop the curtain, and this character would come out and say, okay, we were here, now we're going here. Well, we do this, can I bring a child up on stage and help us with this? So the character became, a national icon, basically. But it's only for Cinderella in England. But in Houston, the audiences really grappled onto that one character, because the adults, they necessarily weren't watching the show, they were actually watching the child watch the show. And that is the most beautiful thing to see on stage, when you see the parents and the grandparents looking at their young child. And they're watching them and the younger selves of them enjoying this production. And from then on, it was this idea of, where is that character? And they decided to keep bringing back Buttons, and I was like, I want Houston to be my home, so I'm going to be here.
I know, I wanted to ask that too, because you're not technically Houston-based, but you come back often. What is it like as someone, as a working actor here in this city? You don't necessarily think of Houston as a huge theater town if you're not from here.
Yeah.
But then you get here and the scene is so rich.
It is so rich. I think if the numbers are correct, there are more seats for theater in Houston than there are on Broadway.
Wow.
So
We
put
have the
that into your
space.
brain.
We
You
have
have
the
the space.
space.
Yes, you have the space, and the art scene is thriving. And I get to travel from all the major cities, so I want to come back to Houston because this is where the art, this is where I get to create a home base, and this is where I get to challenge myself to keep creating this Buttons character and make it new and fresh and unique so that every audience isn't just seeing this same thing over and over again.
Yeah. Wow. As a Houstonian, I love to hear that. I'm going to ask you finally, Ryan, is audience prepared to see this twist on Pinocchio, a story that is well known and well loved? What do you want people to come away with?
I think that when we are challenged with things, especially the idea of AI, and especially as adults, if we can just take one step back and say, we don't always have to go to fear base. There's love and light in this world, and why not start there and say, oh wow, there could be this other positive thing that, so when I'm looking at my child in the front row, it's not all doom and gloom. There's positive, there's light. And this little boy that is an AI robot can come to life.
Wow. I mean, that's an excellent message to end on. Ryan, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.